Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital, the sports tech venture capital company. On this show, I interview top sports entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives who are shaping and many times changing the sports industry. We have put together a series of shows to dive into the transformation and professionalization of college sports. My guest host is Ken Shropshire, the man who wrote the book on sports business. You probably know Ken from his several decades of running the Wharton Sports Business Program at the University of Pennsylvania and leading the Global Sport Institute at Arizona State University. Please subscribe to our show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our 76 Capital website to never miss an episode. Our guest today is Blake Lawrence, the co-founder and president of Opendorse, the leading athlete marketing and NIL technology company. He's a former University of Nebraska linebacker. Blake has become a prominent entrepreneur in athlete branding and digital endorsement. And he's now the author of NIL 101, The House Settlement. Blake, welcome to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
Wayne, Ken, thanks for having me on. Author, that's a new one. I like that.
Sounds good.
Well, it does sound good. It's amazing. Welcome to the club, I guess, of being an author. You've been doing NIL for before NIL was really a thing in college sports. And here we are, a day after the President of the United States signed an executive order about NIL. What's going through your mind?
Well, NIL is center stage. I would say that right now, how much college athletes are earning is a topic of conversation at the highest level of the United States. It's a topic of conversation at every diner across America, and it's going to be on every sports broadcast for the next decade. So the college athlete economy is booming enough to have some folks get involved and say, maybe we should slow the roll of the different mechanisms that are having a huge impact on how much athletes actually make and what the rules are. And people are still, despite being the first month of the new era, this house settlement era, not knowing which rules to follow, if the rules exist, if enforcement exists. So an executive order from the president to say, hey, let's try and figure this out for real, I think is a good thing. We still don't know what it means as an industry, but it means that it's reached the highest level of conversation possible. And hopefully there's a result that comes out of this that benefits everybody.
Blake, if we could, and we probably got some new attendees, some new viewers thinking about this issue since the president has spoken on it. So if we could back up just a little bit in the context of telling people what Opendorse has done before this was a thing, before this was in popular culture, what Opendorse does, and then how this executive order might or might not impact your business in general.
Certainly. So I appreciate that. So Opendorse, I co-founded with Audie Kanalik in 2012. So Opendorse is today the leading real NIL company. We provide technology and solutions to the entire professional sports and collegiate sports ecosystem. But the origins of this whole thing, like how do you start an NIL company in 2012? Well, NIL is new to college sports, but name, image, and likeness monetization has been around for professional athletes for a century. We just call them endorsements at the pro level.
Yeah, and like just for clarity, were you calling it NIL back in 2012, or was it just?
Oh no. Okay. We just called them athlete endorsements. I mean, that's what it was. Yeah. Athlete endorsements, licensing deals, endorsement deals. Those are the two things. Technically, all of this is like tied back to that simple nomenclature in the professional athletes CBAs. When they become a pro, they talk about signing their name, image, and likeness rights to their union, typically as part of a group licensing agreement and that sort of thing. So the words have always been there, but it's just all about NIL. NIL means college, right? That's kind of what that means. College athletes making money. But after I was done playing football in Nebraska, I was a starting linebacker. One day I had to stop playing. I had concussion issues the next, right? So I was done in a day, and I started to help my teammates manage their social media accounts. So I had Prince and Mukamara and Dominic Sue, guys like that went off to the NFL, and they needed help. And so started to help the athletes and realized that, once brands got involved and agents got involved, this was a very nuanced ecosystem. In 2012, it's like the App Store launched. Uber was a new thing. Instagram wasn't even around yet, right? So helping athletes manage this, realizing that there's probably a technology-driven solution like an app that would help them manage their endorsement deals as pro athletes. And so that's where we launched Opendorse in 2012 to help my buddies that were in the NFL manage their deals with their agents and with brand partners. And we partnered with the NFLPA in 2013, then the MLBPA, NHLPA, PGA Tour, LPGA, now Team USA, every national governing body uses Opendorse. So we've been in this space providing technology to help athletes manage this world of making money. In 2021, when the NCAA lifted restrictions on college athletes making money, our market grew 100 times overnight. So it just got a lot bigger, and we were in a fortunate position to help now 150,000 athletes use Opendorse every day. And it's been exciting, rewarding, crazy, and chaotic at the same time.
I mean, did you ever think we'd be at a place right now? And we'll get to sort of how things have changed with the House settlement, and then now with this executive order. But I mean, when you set this all up, did you ever really think it was going to be more than just a player and a brand kind of working together to create an endorsement? I mean, did you think we're going to get to the point where the coaches were going to be like, all right, we want to pay this player this amount of money, and it was going to come from the university? I mean, could you imagine any of this stuff?
No, I mean, Wayne, I think you were one of the very first people I pitched on this whole idea, So I think back to that pitch, and there's no way I would have said, hey, college athletes are going to get paid here soon, and we're going to be in the middle of all that, and that's why you should invest in Opendorse. Like, I didn't say that, right? I'd be lying. Now, there's just the moment that I remember this becoming a reality is in 2019, the NCAA sent a letter to our office in Lincoln, Nebraska, inviting me to be part of a working group. And they revealed the rules are likely to be changing around NIL monetization in college sports. And as a technology, solution in the pro space, they wanted to learn more about how Opendorse manages this ecosystem. So I started to join those conversations, and that's when it became very real that, okay, very soon college athletes will be getting paid. And what does that look like? And the infrastructure for that industry is still being built. It's been built once, and now it's flipping over because there's a new buyer in town. It's the schools themselves. So now that the colleges can pay athletes themselves, it is a whole rebuild and relearning of infrastructure, because we spent the last 4 years educating brands, buyers, and then these collectives on how to do it. And now colleges have to learn how to participate in this athlete economy as well. Completely new stuff.
Blake, my North Star in kind of this space and in working in sports has always been, and you probably have the same heart in this as I do, what's in the best interest of the athlete. I mean, no matter how much you're thinking about profit and all those sorts of things, in the end, you want to make sure the athlete, especially the younger they get, I mean, at some point, it's, you're growing, it's your responsibility. But in this space now, this is bringing access for third parties to young people, to younger ages. What kinds of things are in place now, and what else should be in place to get to these kids, to assist these kids before they really get into college, and the possibility that there's some assistance on campus and otherwise?
Certainly. I'll talk about just the problem and opportunity for athletes as it relates to the earning potential shifting for athletes from 5,000 pro athletes in North America that make money as a pro athlete, right? From either endorsement deals or contracts with sports organizations. So it's a 5,000 pro athlete economy in the US. There's 500,000 college athletes, right? There's a handful of high school athletes making money now today through NIL. And what's interesting is as you shift that down, you start to realize that there's a tremendous amount of need for these young generation of athletes to understand, what does it mean to make money? What is great that at the same moment of athlete NIL in college, there's the entire creator economy. If you go and poll a senior in high school, they're more likely to say, I want to make money on YouTube than they are from a job, So you're going to find a world where these athletes know that you can use your personal brand to build an audience and make money. Like most athletes understand that. What's interesting is that they don't usually have the same tools or time as a creator or other people that monetize their influence. So that's where Opendorse, when we go to a college campus, or we go to even a high school campus, the conversation is about building their business and making them accessible to people that want to pay them.
So Blake, that kind of extends my question a little bit more. That's a very vivid example. I think about myself in that position, and I don't think that money had a chance of being utilized too positively unless I had, my father stepped on me or something. Something would have to intervene to make me better. Your brother has you and his family, I assume. But what have you seen, and what do you see developing in the space to help a young me with millions of dollars coming out? I mean, that, as they say, that's life changing. And it can be negative or positive if it's not changed the right way.
And that's right. I mean, money in the hands of anyone could be negative or positive, right? And so what is amazing about this is the combination of high earners in college sports. So this is what we have. The professionalization of college sports are creating hundreds of thousands of dollars in direct compensation to athletes, and they're in an ecosystem where there is an entire campus of people surrounding them, that their entire purpose of that campus is to develop young men and women so they succeed in society. That is the entire point. It is very different than being in a locker room on the outskirts of Cleveland, trying to make it as a professional athlete where the coaches aren't incentivized to do it. You are under contract. You are a pro athlete. There's no one there that is really looking out for you. Versus the college campus, it's literally the entire point of the institution. So it's the great combination of high earners being surrounded by an environment that is built to grow and educate and equip, but also this is the best thing about college sports and college athletes compensation. It's still a recruiting-based business. If you compensate athletes and fail to help them properly manage that money, you're going to lose that athlete potentially, but you're going to lose the next recruit. You're going to lose parents. You're going to lose, people that are sending folks to your institution. So you not only have to have compensation plans, but support plans around that athlete. So you actually have a reputation of not only paying athletes, but helping them make the most of it. So again, this is a combination of things that really factor into, it's a good time to be a college athlete, and the ecosystem and the people around those athletes are going to help them make the most of it while they're still on campus. They should, by the way. I mean, this is what I'm going to say is all of this is how it should work.
It should be.
There are some schools that are way better at it than others. Okay. There are some schools that are all in on this concept of we got to give them dollars and support them. There are others that have mentalities like we're giving them dollars. Now they just got to get to work. They treat them like pros, and that's okay to treat athletes like pros, but sometimes it could be to the detriment of the athlete, and in a recruiting-based business, they could have a negative impact on the brand of the athletic department for a long time.
Well, I think, a lot of it has to do with, these are young men and women, as you said, they're still on this campus to try to build, who they're going to be as they grow up, and they're getting compensated like, some of the top level, successful business people in the world. So how does that work within a locker room? You being a former player, having worked with so many athletes now at Opendorse, where you have players, sort of the haves and the have-nots. Some of them get a little bit, some maybe get nothing. But like, how does that work, and what is that dynamic like?
Many folks are concerned with the disparity in compensation in a locker room and the impact on camaraderie. I understand that, and we see it. Opendorse, we are a payment processor for 40 plus collectives in the Power Four, right? So Oregon and Texas and Kansas and Wisconsin and those folks. So the big collectives have used our platform for years to compensate athletes. And what that does is it kicks off a lot of data, right? So $500 million plus like verified payments to college athletes. And when you look down a roster, you can see that there are sometimes an athlete that is playing more than a player that's making more. And what's interesting is in pro sports, these numbers are known, okay? But oftentimes that athlete doesn't know what their peers are earning. And that's the biggest fear point for coaches in situations where the player that's making more is playing less, or the one that's making less is playing more, is that they eventually figure that out. And so right now, the lack of transparency and like who's getting paid what is good, is creating some challenges for athletes once they find out, because it creates a certain center point around it, like maybe some animosity, if you will, towards the situation. I do not believe that it is an athlete versus athlete situation at this point. It is athlete versus school at that point. Okay. So we have a tool called Market Intel. We've got a tool called Team Builder that these athletic departments use and general managers use and whatnot to decide what is good, what is fair, what are peers paying athletes at this level and this, conference for this position, this sport. And the outcome of that, the goal of that is that these GMs are at least having some semblance of balancing out their plan of compensation. But the athletes themselves, if they figure out that they're being underpaid, it creates a challenge with their head coach, right, with the athletic department, and there's a problem to solve there. I don't think necessarily it's like the camaraderie in the locker room. It's about our general managers having conversations with athletes the day they step on campus, explaining why their compensation level is the level it is. Okay. And the best GMs that we work with have that conversation. The best GMs across the college sports right now sit down with freshmen and say, there are 5 tiers to compensation on this team. First tier is blank. You're coming in, you haven't played, boom. Next tier is you've played a little bit, right? But you're not a starter. You're not on, consistently on the field. Then you're kind of moving up. And if you have that one conversation one time, every athlete understands where they're at, because these are competitive son of a guns, and you want them to know what it takes to get to the next level. But if you don't have that conversation and they find out that they're at the 3rd level getting paid like the 5th level, it's a challenge.
But isn't the issue with that, and yes, the general manager doing the best that they can, the coach doing the best they can, explaining all of this, but the way the rules work now with the transfer portal, and basically in a minute, that kid could be like, you know what, I'm not getting enough, I'm not playing enough, see you, coach, it's been real, I'm off to the next school. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts around that?
I mean, if you want to have any discussion about the craziness of college sports, it's the transfer portal, not compensation, right? So it's the combination of the two that make it nuts. But the house settlement, like every school now can pay $20.5 million to their athletes across all sports. And you guys know that, but the audience may need to know that. And about 15 million of that, and most power conferences at least, are going to the football team. So let's talk about this. If every power conference football team is spending $15 million a year on their roster, that's a new world. I will tell you that last year in power conference schools, the lowest budget for a football team last year in Power 4 was about $1.5 million in total NIL comp. The highest was closer to 50 million. Okay, so
50.
50, yeah, 50, like close to $50 million on a football roster. Okay, that's a $49 million spread in salary cap, if you will. Okay, when that is the market, transfers are going to run rampant, because there is always that next bigger check. But if everyone is spending $15 million, then the grass, it literally can't get greener on the other side, because they're all dealing with the same size of pool. So I think that the goal here is to narrow the gap between the lowest budget and the highest budget, so you decrease the likelihood of transfer, which should create some continuity that sports fans desire in college, because every roster every year looks different, especially in basketball. I mean, we talk about football, but basketball, these are wholesale shifts in 1 year to the next. And, hopefully this, narrowing of the gap between the lows and the highs in college sports through the House settlement and the new cap will decrease transfer across the ecosystem.
So Blake, a lot of what you describe is, if we have the opportunity for the markets to settle out, if this thing just plays out for a while, people will come to their senses. People will play within themselves, and the people, I mean, the leaders of on these campuses, the GMs, the college presidents, people that make the budgets and say, this is what we can spend in this moment. And at the same time, I assume that there'll be the loose screw in this is, I think, the transfer portal. I think you're absolutely right. I think this idea of a kid not playing, then all of a sudden Texas Tech, which is kind of my Stanford example, Texas Tech says, hey, we'll pay you $1 million a year to come play softball here.
Right.
And Stanford's not playing in the game at all. I'm gonna leave. There's a good chance that I'm gonna leave. But I think over time, and let me know if this is what you're telling us. If we don't get a lot of executive orders, if we stop having interference in the market, this thing will settle out. Schools will have a reputation, as you said, for being the place where you can come, and they will help you to grow with this multi-million dollars when you come out. Is that your kind of your best vision of if things went well?
Yes, I believe that if the next decade of college sports, you just let it be, eventually just the economic, forces of capitalism will create the winners and losers all on their own, right? What's happening in college sports with the House settlement and the attempt at the College Sports Commission limiting collective payments to college athletes is to limit college athlete compensation potential and earning potential so that you can create some level of parity, right, across the ecosystem. The challenge with that is that college sports has never been about parity. Nebraska would, if they won the national championship once, they would do anything to win it every single year for the rest of time. And no one could stop them from that desire, right? The rules, they would do anything to figure out how to do it again. And the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, MLS, like these organizations have all come together and said, hey, we are all better if there's parity in our league, if there's ups and downs, wins, losses. Now, do you want to win? Yeah, but you got the same game. In college sports, there's no desire for that. So I guess the eventuality is if you let this ride, that there will be markets that have a much larger payroll than other markets. But that's just the economic reality of, college sports. Some folks are in the best position. They've got the best tradition. They're sitting on, their university sits on top of a Permian basin with a bunch of oil underneath it. Everyone has their advantages, and winners will be the winners. The outside restrictions are going to be interesting because without a collective bargaining agreement, I don't know why college athletes would voluntarily decrease their earning potential by agreeing to anything that limits outside compensation. And the very first potential major impact on this industry just happened last week. And that's a cliffhanger. If you guys want me to dive into it, I can.
Please.
All right. So the College Sports Commission, the College Sports Commission is basically the NCAA for compensation. So NCAA governs whether an athlete can play or not based on eligibility and academics. Okay. The College Sports Commission's role was to determine whether an athlete can play or not based on their compensation. So you got education eligibility and compensation eligibility. If an athlete is earning in a certain way or too much, whatever, there's some challenge with that. College Sports Commission's job is to stop that, right? And make sure that everyone's following the rules. Okay. Biggest thing that they came out and did is that collectives, which are these booster-backed businesses, boosters pool their money into a bucket and they start paying athletes akin to a salary to get them to stay or go to their favorite school. Okay. The College Sports Commission came out and said that a booster collective paying an athlete on a college campus, there's no valid business purpose, meaning that it's not allowed. So 100% of collectives that were planning to pay athletes above the cap spent the first 3 weeks of July scratching their heads because they could not pay the athletes they want because it's not a valid business purpose, meaning that if that athlete accepted that cash, and they could risk eligibility and not play. Okay. The plaintiffs in the House settlement threatened to file an injunction against the College Sports Commission, basically saying you can't do that. You can't limit earning potential of athletes. So the College Sports Commission went back on their word and said, all right, collectives can now pay athletes. All right. What that did is effectively removed any potential limit on how much donors and boosters can pay athletes, which is what made the whole last 4 years crazy. Is that if Texas A&M wants to spend $50 million on NIL, they can't. Their donors can just spend $50 million on it. This was meant to limit that. They've already gone back on their word and said, okay, collectives can pay athletes. There's one more test, guys. One more test. It's called the range of compensation test. So, Ken, if you imagine this, if you're a Stanford booster and supporter, you want to reward that running back, you pay them $100,000 for one selfie video shot out on their phone, they have to submit that. Okay. Now, that could come back and say it doesn't pass a range of compensation test. What just happened again is the House plaintiffs probably have the ability to say, we're going to file an injunction. Who are you to say what the value is? And so that's not going to work either. So by backing off on the valid business purpose rules in the House settlement, and there's no way they're going to enforce the range of compensation rules without threat of lawsuit, they've effectively removed any limits on third-party compensation. Collectives can still do what they're doing, and now the $20.5 million is the floor in athlete compensation, not the cap.
So that's various. So that's your belief. I was going to ask you that. So Deloitte's NIL Go, their evaluation. Whether or not the $100,000 selfie is a reasonable price.
Right.
There are a lot of different ways they could go. They could say, well, this is the market. This is the first one. And then if they see the next one, they could say that's it. Or they could decline and say this is not valid, reject it, and then they get a lawsuit. So again, the market eventually is going to get to where you're saying that collectives go back to business as normal. And there's no constraint.
I believe that wholeheartedly. The Deloitte NIL Go range of compensation tests, if they enforce it, they're going to get sued. And here's the other part about this. This is really way in the weeds, but we're in the weeds right now. Say a collective offers an athlete compensation and gets rejected for whatever reason. Okay. I think that athlete's still going to cash that check, make that money. Okay. And here's what's going to happen. The College Sports Commission could go and tell the school, hey, that kid accepted and got paid for a deal that we said he can't. Okay. You need to rule him ineligible. And the school is going to say, I'm not ruling him ineligible. I'm not going to tell him to give the money back, because guess who's going to get sued in that situation? The school, right? You're going to have a kid miss a game when one game a year is worth $100,000 a year and his transfer fee. Are you kidding me? No way. So I'm not benching this kid because there's some rules. I'm going to get sued. The school's going to get sued, right? So then the College Sports Commission say, well, if you don't bench the kid, you're in trouble. That statement is the thing that's going to determine whether anyone tries to enforce this. Because the schools themselves can shut down booster behavior, okay? They can tell the boosters, stop it. You are going to make us miss the playoff, okay? Because they're going to run the payments. It's going to get through. Athletes are going to cash it. They're not going to bench them. And then the school is the one that gets in trouble. The school gets fined. The school gets in trouble. So that's what has to happen. So one market has to go all the way through this scenario and get in trouble from the College Sports Commission for failing to rule an athlete ineligible based on third-party compensation. That's when this whole thing is going to actually get regulated. And no school wants to be the first one to get that. And but many are
and the elements that we have trying to buffer that are a toothless NCAA and a College Sports Commission that everybody's saying, is this the Rotary Club? Why do we have to abide by what they're telling us? I mean, it's so we're in a moment where people don't like to say Wild Wild West, but the potential once people play these things out like chess, it is go back to business as normal. And you also have this 20.5 number that you can spend as well.
And I know that I'm getting on. It's going to get to a point where, again, if the College Sports Commission does say, hey, you cannot go to the playoff this year, you can't play in the postseason, or you're going to have scholarship restrictions, you're going to have roster restrictions, the most important thing is that all of the power conference and Division I institutions are supposed to sign a document that says they will not sue the College Sports Commission for enforcing the rules they all agreed to. Okay. That has to be signed. That has to be created and signed. To me, I don't know the status of that document. But the other counter to this, and this is why the executive order comes back into play, is that state laws are coming out. State laws saying that the College Sports Commission cannot penalize an institution in their state. And the College Sports Commission cannot rule ineligible an athlete at an institution in their state. So the state laws are basically, once again, saying College Sports Commission has no authority here. The schools are signing agreements that say that the College Sports Commission can enforce these rules, and they agree to whatever they do. But their state law saying no, they can't do that. So this is why the executive order comes into play, because like this is confusing. Like who's in charge here? Basically,
Yeah.
no one.
Well, I think you hit it. I mean, basically no one. And then so you have, the executive order. President Donald J. Trump saves college sports is the headline, right? I think one of the most important bullets in all of it is this order prohibits third-party pay-for-play payments to college athletes. This does not apply to legitimate, not sure what that means, legitimate fair market value compensation that a third party provides to an athlete, such as for a brand endorsement.
Mm-hmm.
Blake, help us.
All right, here's what it is, y'all. One, the executive order is that statement of, hey, figure it out. But I get what he's trying to say. The boosters paying athletes to do nothing but play, that could be considered pay for play. But most collectives, like real collectives, guys, have figured that out day one. Like you guys, collectives aren't paying athletes to do nothing. They're not. The contracts are for NIL services or licensing rights. Okay, so whoever writes whatever comes out of the executive order has to be incredibly well versed in how this actually happens to try and find any which way to curb it. Like if you're listening, call me if you actually want to try. Like I can show you what you could try and stop. But end of the day, these are private entities contracting with U.S. citizens, and they're paying them for an exchange of services. The best collectives not only do they have the contract tied, I mean, it is tight. It's like, hey, I'm paying you for an appearance. I'm paying you for a social post. I'm paying you for your licensing rights. I'm selling products with your NIL on them. I'm paying you for all these things. It's a real contract, real business, real exchange. The best ones have proof. See, this is like why the 40 plus collectives use us, because we actually require quid pro quo proof submission on every payment. So if you go and audit a collective or a college that uses Opendorse, there's a proof of a service performed for every payment. Okay. If you are thinking that that might be required in the future to prove that this isn't pay for play, that there was a service exchange, you probably need a technology solution that tracks that stuff. Again, this is why Opendorse has gone through a major shift and change in balance, but like that core premise of helping an athlete get paid, but that athlete has to provide proof. Wait, it's the same thing I showed you, a decade ago. Hey, here's the social post. Here's the money. Here's the appearance. Here's the money. Here's a contract you signed. Here's the money. Here's the autograph. Here's the money. So we track all that stuff, and it's going to be essential. But the executive order, if they don't get into it, it's just going to be what it is. I don't know what's going to change. I don't know why athletes would want to have anyone come into this world right now and say, hey, we're going to limit how much these people that want you to go to their school will pay you. I don't know. You can try and put some rails around what you have to do to get the payments, but limiting how much they can pay you, or can they pay you at all, it just seems like not a good idea for an athlete. I get why the industry wants it, but if you're a fan of the athlete, probably not the best outcome for them.
So Blake, you wrote a book. You're now an author, NIL 101, the House Settlement. Share with us, why you wrote the book and what you're hoping to achieve with it.
In the middle of June, started to just get inbound questions. We've got 200 plus college athletic departments that are partners of ours, right? Athletic directors, commissioners, administrators across college athletics asking questions about, hey, how does this actually work, right? The NCAA started to put out some documentation on what the house settlement is, how it works. The College Sports Commission website went live. Parents started to come inbound. Agents started coming inbound. Athletes would contact us or me asking questions. So I started with the first question and started to write an answer to it. Then I went to the second, went to the third. Eventually, I looked up at over 100 questions and answers about the house settlement. And trying to get through a format of how to get this to the world. I also happen to enjoy sketching, like doodling. And so I thought to myself, if I could provide this in a way that is easily digestible and give me an excuse to do some doodling and use some new like Chat GPT type of tools to take some of my sketches and turn them into art and shove it into a book, make it fun to read about the NIL house settlement, right? I thought I would try it. Wayne, I was on a flight to and from Europe, and on that flight, I got all of this packaged up and put together in about a 2-week time frame, brought to life. So NIL 101, the house settlement, I released it on Monday, and we're close to 100 copies have been purchased, and hopefully people are learning a thing or two. It's just everything we're talking about on this podcast right now. Imagine if you like cared about, what was that thing about range of compensation? There's a whole chapter on that. What's the benefits cap? How's it calculated? There's a chapter on that. What are college agents like doing? There's a chapter on that. So it's all built around answering the most common questions that we're hearing at Opendorse about the house settlement, and one fun to read little doodle-filled book.
Yeah, I saw the range of comp doodle is online yesterday.
That's right.
And then amazing, I got a call from the Pulitzer people asking me if I'd vote on the next books for next year, the most impactful on society. So you're up there in the running, man. Come on.
Yeah, put me in there. I might have to make an actual physical printed copy here soon and get one out to both of y'all.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Well, where can people find the book? Yeah,
you can follow on social media. Blake_Lawrence on Twitter. I got it linked there. Blake_Lawrence on Instagram, all that. I have it listed on Gumroad, so BlakeLawrence.gumroad.com. And I'll keep hawking it on my social channels because again, most of these things are about answering real questions in the industry, and I'll probably just have a link to the book to purchase after most of the questions I answer on my social feeds.
Well, Blake, it's been awesome having you on this special edition of our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show, focusing on what's happening across the college sports industry. And as we wind down here, I maybe one last question here. Really, just how do you think this season's going to go? This college football season, this college basketball season. What do you see is going to happen next?
The first year of the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams was exciting, I think, for everyone to see what happens. Like, what does it mean to get to the playoff? And you saw SMU reach the playoff. You saw Arizona State reach the playoff. You saw Tennessee reach the playoff. That's great to have them in that bucket, right? And the Boise State, right? Did I say that yet? I mean, make the playoff. And what that's done to those markets is just transformative. Making the playoff matters in college football. And because of NIL, because of the transfer portal, every team right now, I do believe, thinks they have a chance. Because a year ago, did SMU have a chance? Did Arizona State have a chance? Did Boise State have a chance? Were we talking about them? No. But that's why every fan base can look at the roster and say, we got that key receiver. We got that offensive lineman we needed, right? We got that defensive back that we were missing last year. We have a chance at the playoff, and that's what drives so much of the industry on college sports is the conversation leading up to the season. And NIL, transfer portal, is a challenge for a lot of sports fans to get past. But I will tell you this, Wayne. If your favorite team got a really great player in the portal, you love the transfer portal, right? It's the best. If your favorite team lost a player to the portal, you hate the transfer portal. But by the time the season rolls around, you forgot about last year's roster. You're excited about this year's team. And all of that leads to me saying this, guys. Nebraska is in the playoff this year. Nebraska football. Hopefully I don't look back at this clip and laugh. Please, Nebraska, do something.
I'm going to speak for Sanford. We hate the transfer portal, but that's a whole other story. That's a different show.
I believe it, man. Again, it's hopefully NIL and college athletes getting paid direct from the school limits the Stanfords and whatnot of seeing their favorite players leave town for a payday somewhere else. And hopefully that's what happens this fall.
Blake, thank you again so much. Ken and I really appreciate you taking the time. Best of luck with everything at Opendorse, all the things you're working on. And of course, everyone who's out there listening and watching the show, go out and pick up a copy of Blake's new book, NIL 101, The House Settlement. This guy knows what he's talking about, and he's been there even before the beginning. So Blake, thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thanks, Blake.
On behalf of our entire 76 Capital team, thank you for tuning in to this special college edition of our Sports Leadership Show. Please remember to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast network or on the 76 Capital website. You can also explore the hundreds of episodes we've produced over the past several years on those same networks. And as always, go out there and make it happen.